I've been very difficult for us on the leading streak, but we're going to pick it up in the second half.
Right here. 6-3 out of Santa Clara, Steve Nash.
What a pass by Steve Nash. Steve Nash making it happen.
The greatest shooter in NBA history.
A three by Nash. One of the great players to ever play the game, Steve Nash.
This is Basketball Central. I'm Brad Fay. Thanks for joining us again. And if you're a fan of the best player ever produced by this country on the hard court, you're going to love this show. It is all about Steve Nash from top to bottom, the player that was drafted 15th overall back in 1996. Later on in Swish or Brick, Danielle Michaud, Eric Smith, and Alvin Williams will talk all things Steve on and off the court. Michael Grange and Leo Routens talk about Nash's impact on this country and every team that he played for along the way. But first, an interesting conversation led by Alvin Williams. He's got Jay Triano, whose impact on Steve Nash is unquestioned throughout his time with the national team. Mark Stein, and from Tel Aviv, Amari Stoudemire.
Save money on my mind, never touch a 9 to 5, but I grind till I can't no more. And if I make it to the point where I don't need to grind, I'm still gonna grind in my leisure time.
Nash keeps that dribble wide behind the back, a dazzling pass.
Are you kidding me with that pass right there?
Nash gets through, throws up a circus shot, hits it.
What a shot. Hey, I'm here joined by some close friends, and people had a lot of interaction with Steve Nash. For one, Coach Triano, Jay Triano, who got a chance to coach Steve and is a close friend. Thanks for joining me. He's now assistant coach for the Charlotte Hornets. And we have Mark Stein, reporter for the New York Times, who covered Steve early on in his career, in Dallas. And we also have his former teammate, Amari Stoudemire, who, that was a dynamic duo with you guys, attacking the paint, changing the game as we see it today. And you guys get an opportunity to take some time and talk a little bit about Steve Nash. Thank you for joining me. And this is more open question to all you guys. How much did Steve influence the way the game is played today?
I mean, I think today's game is definitely something that has been somewhat mocked from what we have done in Phoenix, And with Steve, the way the game is played now, I mean, I really technically don't really see a player that can play like Steve in today's game. Mm-hmm. Because most point guards nowadays want to score most. They want to score. They want to be shooting guards. The guys want to score most of the time. And Steve was actually a true point guard who put his teammates first. And like Coach was saying about Steve is that he was such a humble guy where he would take care of everyone else before himself. So I don't see any humble guys like Steve in today's game.
I spend more time wondering what would it have been like for those Suns teams to be able to play now, because they were ahead of their time. And when Steve went there in 2004, I spent a lot of time in Phoenix over the next 6 years watching those teams. And to this day, when I run into Mike D'Antoni, he says it every time I see him. Why didn't I make Steve shoot more? Why didn't we shoot more threes? We should have gone to an even further extreme, but the Suns were ahead of their time. I put them really at the top of my list of, the best teams that never had a chance to win it all.
In Toronto, of course, in Canada, all over Canada, it's that recognition, and they give Vince Carter a lot for helping the Canadian game and bringing it and, putting a light on it for the young players of today. We see how many Canadians that are actually in the NBA and doing very well. But I feel like Steve, when I don't hear Steve's name that much when those things are brought about, but he has to get a ton of credit for that explosion as well, correct?
Absolutely. And I think what Vince did was Vince provided all the highlights and every kid started playing. And then Steve provided the belief that a Canadian kid could do it. And, so every kid tried to be like Vince, not knowing what was ahead of them. When Steve Nash broke through, made it to the NBA, became an all-star, became an MVP, the rest of Canada said, hey, we can be as good as this guy. The door is open, and that's why basketball in this country has gone crazy.
Well, definitely thank you for taking the time, man. We really appreciate it. But Steve, he's caused this generation this momentum, and I know everyone's proud of him and happy to talk about him. So thank you again. for taking your times out. Mark as well. And hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good.
All right, brother. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for having me.
I tell you, Nash is amazing.
Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash, they learned together.
Nash. Oh, Stoudemire, what a pass! Pick and roll, one after another.
Steve Nash is the godfather of basketball in Canada.
So many different ways we could go when we talk about Steve Nash, the 8-time All-Star, 2-time MVP, Leo Rautins and Michael Grange, guys that have seen him on different levels throughout his entire career, going way, way back. Leo, don't let the shirt you're wearing influence your answer. It either covers it if you don't go this way, or it influences it. Which team did Steve have the greatest impact on? You've got Santa Clara University, got the national team, and then his two primary NBA teams in Phoenix and Dallas. What do you say?
You know, I'd have to say the national team, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, who you're playing with and the talent you're surrounded by is one big factor, but also for Steve's own career. I mean, really, the national team salvaged his career when a lot of people weren't sure where he was going yet, but it gave him the confidence to become the player he became in the NBA.
Yeah, the numbers almost doubled scoring-wise the next year. So you believe that that confidence he gained in Sydney directly translated the next year in the NBA?
100%, and also let the NBA look at him in a different light and say, you know what, we can't give up on this kid. This kid is special, and he's showing us. We just got to put him in the right opportunity.
All right, Michael, to you, what do you say of those 4 teams?
I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns. You know, when you look at Steve Nash, he arrived in Phoenix. He was an all-star, clearly, and he had really grown as a player. But people didn't look at him as a generational player or a guy who shifts paradigms, so to speak, until he got to Phoenix and really teaming with Mike D'Antoni and the rest of the talent there could demonstrate he was a dominant all-time level player. And then that was obviously evident right from the gate with the Suns, and they go from deep in the lottery to a 60-plus win team. So I think that marriage there is, you know, when Steve Nash, well, he's already been in the Hall of Fame, but it was those years in Phoenix that made him.
I'm going to throw a quick one at you, Michael, because you chronicled his journey. I'm going to say BC basketball in general, because he got his one scholarship offer. Nobody was getting anything, and suddenly it opened it up. Do you agree with that too?
Oh, I think so. And you know, I think more broadly, Steve Nash informed the NBA that, look, we got to look a little wider for our talent because we're missing some guys, and they very, very nearly missed on Steve Nash.
All right, Leo, to you for the player that he had the greatest impact on, and I think every player in the world would love to play with Steve Nash, but the big 3, Nowitzki, Marion, and Stoudemire.
Well, these are all interesting to me. I mean, Nowitzki, really, Steve Nash helped launch his career and put Nowitzki in a place where he could be successful. But the guy I think he had the most direct influence on, Michael Grange referenced those 60 wins Phoenix Suns team, Amari Stoudemire. Amari Stoudemire in the pick and roll with Steve Nash was devastating and really made himself a name and made himself an all-star in the league playing with Steve.
Michael likely can't go wrong with any of the choices. Which way are you going?
I'm gonna go with Dirk Nowitzki. I think Leo makes a great point. I mean, when you think of the hard rolling big finishing at the rim, you know, Amari Stoudemire is almost a prototype. But I think Steve Nash deserves a lot of credit for how he interacts with his teammates outside of the floor, off the court. And when you hear stories about Dirk Nowitzki, you know, a rookie from Germany, completely a fish out of water, and you know, Steve Nash, who at that time was not a big figure either on the Mavericks, let alone in the NBA. Like, he was a guy who was kind of under his own pressure, maybe almost underperforming. And they really bonded in that first year together, doing workouts at night, just kind of hanging out, talking soccer, those kinds of things. Things that go completely unnoticed and unspoken about in the, you know, the hard-nosed world of pro sports. There's probably never been anyone better than Steve Nash, and that makes him a Hall of Famer as much as anything else.
And a 4-time member of the 50-40-90 exclusive percentage club. Maybe Leo Rautins in his pool can match those numbers, but no other Canadian will ever get close to that. Thanks, guys.
In honor of this this week's subject, we have a Steve Nash-focused swishes or bricks. I'm joined by Eric Smith, Alvin Williams yet again this week. And fellas, tread carefully because I don't know how much Nash slander I will allow in this segment. But really, how can you hate on a guy who has moves like this? A full spin cycle to split a pair of spurs. Play goes on, he scores a little teardrop at the end. But is this sequence a swish or a brick?
I'm going to give it a swish for the way that you perfectly described it. The spin move, as beautiful as it was, no doubt about it, it looked like it might turn out to be a bit of a broken play or a broken trip down the floor, an empty trip. I'm giving this an absolute swish from start to finish.
Everything that Nash did on that play was something that kids are told not to do. Whether he's splitting the pick and roll, and not only did he split the pick and roll, he spun, put the ball almost behind his back, jumped, left his feet, kicked the ball out, and shot the layup off the wrong foot. So everything was so unconventional, but that's today's game. That's the trendsetter right there. So I'm giving that play, the whole sequence, a swish as well.
Nash was never an easy defensive assignment, and Garnett felt like he had a pretty interesting way of trying to throw him off. Alvin, how do you feel about the clapping in the face? I feel like it's so much disrespect, but is that a swish or a brick to you?
I guess it's a swish. I know KG and his intensity, and that's the thing. But then if you look at the score, they're down 10. It's the third quarter. I know, but that's KG. But I will give it a swish because it was an intense defensive play, and it was in the playoffs as well. So I like the whole thing.
See, I was prepared to go brick, but the more I thought about it, and you look at both angles, because I like the fact that Garnett jumps up on him. I like the clap in the hands. I like the kind of showmanship and the personality. But I also like it from the flip side. The way that Nash kind of just looks at him in disdain or disgust, like, come on, man, really? And he just gives the ball up. I thought that was a great reaction, too, where he wasn't really fazed by all the theatrics that KG was throwing at him.
Now, Nash, two-time MVP in back-to-back years, although hotly debated for a pretty long time since, because Shaq still cannot get over the fact that he was beat out by Nash.
Little good-looking David Beckham little guy running around like a gnat, just passing the ball to people and doing this and doing that. He scored every now and then, but he would always beat me out in the MVP voting. And I'm averaging 28-15 without the free throws.
Is it a swish or a brick that Shaq is still squawking about this?
I think it's a brick. I think Shaq, I mean, listen, your resume speaks for itself. The accolades speak for themselves. It's time to let certain stuff go. I love Shaq, but the grudge that he seems to carry with a lot of different things and just the axe that he continues to grind year after year on a lot of different topics.
I'm mad I wasn't on Dream Team 1. I'm mad they started the Hacker Shack. I'm mad Nick Anderson missed those 4 free throws.
It gets a little bit tired, so I'm saying it's a brick.
I'm going to say, let it go as well. I'm going to call it a brick. But I understand Shaq, I understand his point. There's some things, when you're an athlete and you want to, you can't let things go, and you have that inside you. So it's probably going to eat away at him for a bit, but I'm with you, E. You have to let it go at some point.
I give it a swish for sort of the same reason, because I love that it still gets under his skin and still gives us an opportunity to talk about how great Steve Nash was in those 2 years, right? To his brother Martin, who we know is a pro soccer player. And let's be honest, Steve probably could have gone that path as well, showing off the footy skills in this All-Star Challenge preview that was supposed to be happening in July. E, are his footy skills a swish or a brick?
Absolute swish. I don't know how it can't be. I can barely even dribble a soccer ball at all, let alone do some of the tricks that he's doing. And it's ridiculously impressive how good he is. We've even seen it on the court, some of the stuff that he's even done in all-star games with teammates as well. So I give it a swish.
And you're talking to a guy who's never played soccer. The one time I played soccer in 7th grade, I kicked the ball, I guess, with my toe, and I broke it. I broke my toe and had no clue of what the hell I was doing. So I do know one thing. Whatever he was doing, it looked amazing. So I'm going to give him a hell of a swish. That's an all-netter right there.
What would Canada Kid be without being able to also lace him up, putting on the hockey skates, hitting the ice? Alvin, while you were in Canada, did you ever play hockey, and do you give him a swish or a brick for the hockey skills?
Hell no. Never played hockey. I played street hockey before, but I never played ice hockey. And I'm going to give him another swish because, once again, I have no clue about any of those things.
I'm giving him a swish, but I want to turn this on Alvin a little bit here because I don't know if he's played hockey, but do you remember those throwback commercials with the Leafs and Raptors back in the day and Al staring into the mirror with the gloves on? I mean, I know he knows his hockey.
I'm giving it a brick for the reason Alvin liked it. Why is he in his basketball uniform? Let the guy wear a hockey sweater, maybe like a Canucks jersey. I don't know. What about Nash looking a little Derek Zoolander and trying to do his modeling stuff? I think this shot was featured maybe in GQ. Alvin, is this a swish or a brick?
I like it. This is a swish for me. You had the Scully, you had the Bomber, you had the Suns. I love Suns jerseys.
And I know amongst the three of us, one guy's been in GQ and three of us haven't. So that alone, I give the guy a swish.
It's a good way to look at it. I'm going to give him a swish for the throwback uni because I also love that Suns jersey. And another little swish for maybe the fact he'll give some guys confidence with this quarantine hair. They can grow it out long under their hat and feel as cool as Steve Nash, maybe. Thanks, guys.
As always, we love your input here on Basketball Central, and the inbox question from last time leading into our discussion about Steve Nash was what you think of first when the Hall of Famer comes to mind. And Hall of Fame was one of the options that, well, it's battling pretty good with the national team experience, because what Steve Nash did when he joined Team Canada late 1990s, especially to make that run towards the 2000 Olympics, was nothing short of phenomenal. And now we turn our attention to the growing story of the possibility of the NBA coming back. You've heard all the different scenarios. So with those in mind, we want to know this time on the inbox, who benefits the most from the pause? Go to sportsnet.ca and let us know what you think. Once again, thanks for joining us on Basketball Central. For all involved, we appreciate it. I'm Brad Fay. We'll talk to you next time.
Hi, I'm Canadian celebrity Steve Nash. Yeah, that's right.
I've been very difficult for us on the leading streak, but we're going to pick it up in the second half.
I had a few laughs, about 9,000 beers.